Welcome to Mental Wealth, the podcast to invest in your mind. Here I will help you make sense of your mind and behaviours, giving you the tools to have your best life. There is so much to share, so let's get into this episode and explore another great topic. Hi everyone, it's Alison here and you're welcome to episode 4 of Mental Wealth. In this episode, I want to tackle mental health and why it is still a stigma. I think it's really important that we talk about mental health and how we can work on stigma. Everything I talk about, everything I do, and everything that I encourage people to think about is linked to positive well-being and finding answers. My own personal journey was definitely one of finding answers, and there were times when my mental health was rock bottom. I'm a big fan of understanding the power and functions of the mind. This was definitely part of the answers for me. And during these episodes of this podcast, I will be addressing many aspects of mental health and how you can invest in your mind. I will be bringing in guests next time, so I'm really excited to talk about this topic over the future weeks. So in this episode, let's just talk openly about mental health. It is so important that we respond to misperceptions and negative comments. And how we do that is we can focus more on the facts and on different experiences. It is also really important to be aware and more conscious of the language that you use, as it can be really damaging. And I think it's important that we remember that language is not just what you say about someone else or to someone else. It is as much about your self-talk. So let's do this episode as a little reminder to everyone that words really do matter. So removing stigma means that we have to recognise that we are all more alike than different. We need to reframe from making stigmatising comments, having an ongoing conversation with children, family members, friends, and modelling love and acceptance. It can be scary not to know what help is available and how to get it. Breaking stigma is important because it is a form of suicide prevention. Mental illness is treatable and recovery is possible. Often people will speak to a friend, a family member, or maybe a faith leader before they will talk to a mental health professional. These are some of the facts that I think we need to keep an eye on. Many of us now have improved knowledge of mental health and know more about the impact of mental health. Having improved mental health conversations and increased contact with other people who have mental health conditions has likely reduced mental health stigma. But there is room for more. We see many celebrities and stars now talking more openly about it and about their experience, and this can only be good. One of the most important things to remember is that most people struggle in one way or another. It is okay to not be okay, and it is critical that we talk and share about our situations. So I hope that just by saying it like that, if anyone is listening and is struggling with their mental health, to feel that they are not alone. And for me, that's one of the most important strategies, really. And that's why I want to do this podcast. Okay, so talking openly about mental health. Sounds like a new concept, but it's not. Lots of things can lead to feelings of anxiety, including exam pressures, relationships, starting a new job or losing a job, or other big life events. We can also get anxious when it comes to things like money and not being able to meet our own basic needs like heating our homes or buying food. In this country, in Britain, we are certainly more aware of it than we used to. Diagnoses as well have broadened. So more of us see grief and stress as mental illness than we did before. Talking therapies, having a different language we hear around now. We hear words like trigger, boundaries, protection, self-care. We've still got that stiff upper-lipped British way of dealing with things. But some of the language that we hear now is different. And I think we need to keep building on what all that means. So maybe during this episode, I will just set the scene. But in future episodes, I will come back to things like triggers, boundaries, protection. We'll definitely be looking at self-care. But we'll drill down and do that in a bit more detail later. So we need to think about discrimination and negative reactions to mental illness, which can increase the taboo. So while we've got all this good stuff going on and we are more open about it, there are still huge areas where we can improve. People can feel more able to seek help that they need without risking their jobs, relationships and their social life. But there are still some people out there who don't feel able to come forward. Sometimes the link to unhealthy diets, lack of physical exercise, loneliness, family breakups, childhood neglect and trauma, and the pressure of competitions in schools and workplaces can all play a part in people's mental health. So, let's have a little look at some ideas around what we can do to reduce the stigma. So my first point is know the facts. We need to be careful to get information from a reliable source. There is a lot of information out there and it's not always correct and it's not always helpful. If you can educate yourself around mental illness and mental health, make sure it's from a good source, but equally when you do that, you will know a little bit more information about the signs. So this might help you personally, but it also might help you if you are supporting someone else. So knowing the facts, knowing the signs is our first point. Second point, be aware of your attitudes and your behaviours. We can be very quick to judge. It is part of the way that the human mind is wired, but it is important to keep an eye on it. We could use the strategy to stay curious about someone else rather than to jump to judgment. We never really know what's going on in somebody else's life, and we need to try and keep unhelpful opinions to ourselves. A look or a stare can impact on someone without you even realising. A word, some phrase that you say, you just say off your cuff, could have a lasting impact on someone else. You will never know this, but it's something to keep an eye on. Or you could flip this and think about it for yourself. Someone might have said something to you, looked at you in a certain way, and it has left a lasting impact on you. So let's be careful not to jump to conclusions and judge others quickly. Now, a big topic for my number 3 point is to choose your words carefully. Words can be so powerful. They can speak a truth, although they can often be damaging. Again, if we are caught in this trap of judgment, then there is a huge risk that you will be jumping to conclusions, your language will be quite negative, your emotion towards that person or that situation will also be negative, and this is only going to drain you. So we'll keep an eye on our language. And my next point is we need to educate each other. We need to speak up positively about how we're feeling about each other and try and help ourselves and others look for answers. By staying isolated, by staying closed, this in itself is part of the problem. Number 5 is to focus on the positive. Now, I'm saying this purposefully because I want you to hear the message, but I also know that it's not just about focusing on the positive. It's much more complicated than that. But sometimes we can get stuck in our own emotional response, which means we might miss opportunities in everyday life. There are often little mini miracles out there. We need to be able to reach out to others, and no one is better than us. We can be supportive and aim to include everyone. We need to move away from shame. We need to call out people or situations that are damaging and stigmatizing. We're all in this life together, and breaking down barriers is critical to help us all move forward, but particularly for those who feel isolated. Okay, so let's just quickly do a quick summary of what I've covered today. So, number 1, make sure you get your information from reliable, trustworthy sources. Number 2, be mindful that we can judge very quickly, and this can be very damaging. It is part of the human brain's wiring, but we need to be mindful of it. Just imagine we don't really know what's going on in someone else's life. Number 3, words are very powerful, and we will be coming back to words in future episodes, how we speak to ourselves and others, different language patterns. I'm going to come back to that in future episodes. We need to speak positively so that we can educate people not only on your situation, but just being able to hear each other. And let's focus as much as possible on the positives. If you're able to look for opportunities in your day, what's the one small thing that's gone well today? What's your quick wins? It starts to just slightly change up how you are getting on. So mental health is a huge topic. We have got stigma still. We do need to break it down, and how we'll do that is together. So you'll probably tell from this episode that I'm really passionate about this topic. I do have a background in mental health, working in the NHS for many years as a therapist. I know that we can look at mental health through a lens of bravery, strength, resilience and persistence. These are the qualities we need to face mental health and mental illness, and to fight stigma. No matter how you contribute to any mental health movement, you can make a difference simply by knowing that mental illness is no one's fault, and no matter what society stigma says. So, I've come to the end of this episode. Thank you so much for listening in. I hope that you have all found something helpful in what I have shared. Remember, investing in your mind does take time. It takes regular, repetitive, like going to the gym, effort and determination. So stick with it, stick with your journey. Listening to this podcast in itself is a step in the right direction. I'm excited to share this space with you, and I hope that you have got something new for you to digest from this episode. In each episode, we will be doing little mini steps. Please share this episode with anyone who you know who might be struggling with themselves or looking for answers. But firstly, thank you for listening in today. In next week's episode, I'm really excited to say that we will be doing a guest slot. We will be talking to Christine Handy from Florida. Christine is a motivational speaker, best-selling author, and she serves on 2 non-profit organisations. She's a model, an influencer, and a cancer disruptor. She is truly inspirational. I have had the joy of interviewing her before, and I can't wait to hear her words of wisdom to share with you. I hope you can join me in next week's slot. Thank you for listening and sharing in this episode of Mental Wealth. Remember, you can subscribe wherever you get your podcast. My last question to you is, what is the one small thing that you can take action on from this episode? Message me on Instagram or through our website with questions you'd like me to explore. You'll find the links in the show notes. I'll be back with more tools and tips to make sense of your mind in the next episode. In the meantime, be kind to yourself. Bye for now.